Let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime.
Okay, so I am going to try to cover a more advanced way to think about trail braking. Every pro uses trail braking, right? So when you think about trail braking, what does the term trail mean? The term trail means you do your aggressive braking. So if I'm going down a long straightaway and I'm going to apply my brakes, the hardest braking I'm going to do is when I first grab the brakes. I'm going to do my aggressive braking, and as I'm entering the corner, I'm trailing off the brakes, right? Trailing off the front, trailing off the rear. I'm not increasing pressure as I approach the corner. I'm going to do my hard braking, and then I'm using my brakes to set my speed. And that's what I tell a lot of riders. Don't use your brakes to stop, use it to set your speed. So what is trail braking? Trailing off the brakes and setting your speed for the corner. So there's three different ways you can do corners, right? The first one, so if I'm on a track and I'm trying to figure out or perfect every corner to the most perfect I can get it, or one of the kids I'm training can, is I say, all right, let's do it. Let's brake it. Let's do the braking. Let's try to do no brakes in our roll zone and then accelerate out, from the apex on. Some corners, motocross, we're not doing street bike racing, right? So motocross corners are changing all the time. So start with no brakes after, when you initiate your lane. If you're struggling with that, then try trail braking. And there's a certain time you're going to use a front trail brake, and there's a certain time you're going to use a rear trail brake. So you can try both. And what I like to do is I take, those first few laps of practice and I experiment with braking, no brakes in the roll. I'll experiment with a front brake drag. And by front brake drag, that's a front brake trail. So what you want to do, a lot of people, when they're like, oh, drag the front brake, what they'll do is they'll brake, and then they get into the corner and then they start grabbing the front brake harder. You never want to do that. That is just going to make you knife. It's going to make you fall over, and it's going to kill your roll speed. So the thing with roll speed is you can still have roll speed while trail braking, but you need to be trail braking and letting off that brake. So the corners, I rode yesterday, and I did a corner track at my parents' house. And I had different corners. I had a hard inside rut, hard packed inside rut. It was very tight. I had a couple double apex corners. I had some soft, fluffy corners. So what I've found is if you have a very hard inside rut, right, the rear trail brake is not going to work very good. You're going to find yourself to be very stop and go, and the rear suspension is going to spring up in the middle of the corner. But the front trail brake can be very effective, but you have to be releasing it as you're coming in. The rear trail brake, where I found that works, is when you have a double apex and a little bit softer terrain. So like if you ever notice watching like the MotoGP guys when they ride the sand tracks, you'll see them on their rear brake. But where people get confused, and what I see, novice to intermediate riders, they think trail braking is holding that rear brake down through the whole corner. It is not. You have to have light pressure. So it has to be releasing pressure gradually as you're going through the corner, so you keep that roll going. There's going to be times where you're going to do no brakes. There's going to be times when you're going to do a front trail. There's going to be times where you do a rear trail brake. I have found the front brake is better for the tighter, harder packed switchback ruts. The rear brake is better for that loamier sand. And so another thing is rear brake position too. Okay, so what I found also is I run my rear brake pretty neutral. I don't run it the Jet Lord status. I run it pretty neutral. I don't have a lot of flexibility in my right knee. I've blown my ACL 3 times. So with that, I have to keep it a little more neutral. If you don't have that flexibility and you're not a short guy, you're probably going to have to run your brake a little bit lower than 5'6". I'm 6 foot tall. You're going to have to run that brake lower, because when you get on the bike, there's a lot more flex and bend in your knee. So you're going to have a harder time trailing because your knee is going to have to come up 6 inches higher than that shorter guy is. So play with your brake pedal position. If you're finding the certain corners that you do need to trail and it's more effective, play with the brake pedal position. So that way, when you are trailing, you're not using 100% brake. You're, let's say, using, you're going 50, 40, 30, 20 as you're trailing and trying to build that roll speed coming out. And like I'm saying, there is no one way to do a corner correct. I rode a supercross track. I was training a kid on a supercross track the other day, and I was squaring corners. And I'm going to do a video about squaring corners. I was, braking into my corner, then pulling in my clutch, squaring the corners up, and, doing the little rhythm sections. Experiment. When you go to the track, experiment with braking, no brakes. Okay, see if you can get it. If you feel like you're really fighting the bike and you just can't get it, and you got the proper lean, you got proper body position, then experiment with trailing the front brake. If that front end, when you have a little bit of you're releasing that pressure on the front end and you feel like it's doing this on you, well, it's probably because the ground is too soft. And when you're doing that soft ground, the front brake is more prone to knifing when you're going through a soft, it could be a rut that has a soft fluff on the top, or it could just be simply a sand berm. But like yesterday, the fluffy berms that I was riding in, there's no sand at my dad's house. It's all adobe, but it was a little drier and a little more fluffy in these berms, and they were a little more prone to movement. So if you're trailing the front, you're going to be more prone to movement and the front end washes. So in those ones, I was trailing the rear, and my lean angle, I tried it all three ways. I tried it with no brakes rolling, I tried it with trailing the front, and I tried it with trailing the rear. I was better with the rear, and my lean angle stayed consistent. The roll angle stayed good. I couldn't do it with the front, and when I braked and I let off, I was fighting the bike the whole time. So like I said, don't abuse the trail brake. And that's what I find is a lot of people, they abuse the controls on the bike. They trail brake every single corner. When you go out, use the thing in between your ears and experiment with the different techniques. Like I always say, have a toolbox and have a tool for every application you need. So when you go out and ride, know how to hit corners off the brakes. That's why I have the videos about the no brake drills. Know how to hit corners riding the front brake. Know how to hit corners when trailing the rear brake, and figure out which one works the best. But if you can master those three things, master it the best you can. Nobody's a master. You will be able to analyze a corner, and if you're struggling, you'll be able to quickly fix that struggle. So yeah, that's my thing about trail braking. And also make sure you play with the adjustment of your front brake, that it's nice and comfortable and you can trail it comfortably. Don't have it too far out, don't have it too far in. Rear brake is crucial. Have that at the right height for you. Just because Jet Lawrence runs it super high doesn't mean you at 6'3" should be running it to the sky. It's not going to work. Okay, you're going to be overusing your pressure because of the bend in your legs. If you're a taller guy, you're going to be putting a lot of pressure. When you go to sit down, you got a 6-inch longer leg pushing on that pedal, which is going to increase the pressure. So yeah, give it a shot. When you go work on your corners, work on the different trailing techniques. And it'll be huge. When you learn how to apply the technique into every different corner, your lap times will pick up. And there's not one way to do everything correctly, right? There's different techniques for different kinds of dirt, different kind of corners, different kinds of ruts. All right, so that's my advanced trail braking.